A red t-shirt on a green background. Really, Odd Man Rush? Looks a little bit Christmassy, don't you think? It's the end of May, dude. You're a little bit early for the festivities. I should probably go and change this, but I've already committed to it so far, so I may as well see it through to the end, right? Nobody likes a quitter, right? Hello hockey fans, and welcome back to another video. So I was scrolling through Twitter earlier this week, as I often do, and I happened to stumble upon a post by an account called Fight.tv. Now in this post, Fight TV had shared a video of two men absolutely wailing on each other while dressed in full hockey gear with the caption, "Who will be king of the rink?" Not only that, the post had included the hashtag Ice Wars, while also tagging a fellow Twitter account called Ice Is War 2. Now, given that I had never heard or seen anything about this before this post, and given that the video itself seemed to have a pretty sizable production value since it featured multiple camera angles and a full commentary team, I decided to dig a little bit deeper. And oh boy was I interested with what I found, folks. Allow me to introduce you to Ice Wars International, a brand new event that is best described as prize fighting on skates. Remember that scene in Goon 2 when Ross Ray competes in that hockey fighting league and he wins a 10-man battle royale on ice? Yeah, it's basically that, but in real life now. So what is Ice Wars? Who is running this event, and how did their debut tournament play out? Well, let's take a look at this fascinating new competition and try to figure it out, shall we? So in today's video, join me as we explore Ice Wars International. Let us begin by figuring out what Ice Wars actually is and how it came about. Now, according to their website, Ice Wars International is a 4-series event that is described as, quote, the most extreme combat sport ever invented. With their first event in the spring of 2022, which I expect is probably the event that just happened, and with several more planned for the future, Ice Wars sees professional and semi-professional fighters take to the ice and compete in 2 one-minute rounds, from which a group of judges will award points to each fighter based on their performance. That is, if there isn't a KO or a TKO. Now, there are 3 different weight classes, including cruiser, heavy, and super heavy, ranging from £190 all the way up to £220 plus, and though each battle takes place on the ice, each fighter has to drop their hockey gloves and fight with UCF-style gloves instead. So don't even think about face-washing your opponent during a competition, because otherwise you will be face down on the ice in no time. According to the IWI rulebook, fighters are forbidden from headbutting, kicking, biting, kneeing, tripping, or pulling hair. They are not allowed to hold an opponent's gloves, and each fighter's helmet and gloves must stay on them at all times. So it's basically boxing on skates with a few hockey nuances thrown into the mix. Sounds pretty interesting to me, folks, I don't know about you. So who is behind Ice Wars International, and who is in charge of running these events? Well, according to their website, the president of Ice Wars International is none other than AJ Galante, the former general manager of the infamous Danbury Trashers and a primary figure in the Netflix documentary Untold Crimes and Punishments, which you should really go and watch if you haven't done so already, as I highly recommend it. Even non-hockey fans would love this documentary, it's absolutely superb. In fact, AJ's dad, James Galante, who is the former CEO of Automated Waste Disposal and was proven to have connections to the Genovese crime family, is listed as an advisor on the company's website. So it sounds like the father-son duo are back in action for another crazy hockey-related venture, because the Danbury Trashers weren't enough for them by the sounds of it. Hey, I'm all for it. This sounded like a great team, and this sounds like a great event too. Now, those of you who have watched the Netflix documentary are probably thinking that both creating and operating a hockey fighting tournament is the most on-brand thing that this pair could have done. And you would be absolutely right. After all, AJ was just a teenager when his dad handed him control of the Danbury Trashers all the way back in 2004. And though he was just a kid at the time, he actually did a pretty good job putting together a roster that was both talented and full of skill, and tough as nails too. Thanks to their deep pockets and the 04-05 lockout bringing the NHL to a halt, AJ was able to recruit noted enforcers such as Brad Wingfield, Mario LaRocque, Ruben Under and John Morasti to name a few, alongside skilled players like Jeff Dorr, Alex Gupil, and Drew Omisioli, amongst many others. I hope I pronounced all of those names right. I probably didn't, but I gave it a good try, you know. Oh, and he even managed to recruit Wayne Gretzky's brother Brent and longtime NHLer Mike Rupp too. Not bad for a teenage GM in his first year of operations, eh, folks? Of course, AJ has now become a fully grown man in the decade and a half since the days of the Trashers, and given that he has spent many years working as a boxing promoter, if anyone was going to create an event like Ice Wars, it was going to be AJ. After all, his past experience in hockey and his recent tenure in boxing makes him the perfect person to bring this event to life, make sure it's a success, and ensure that it reaches its intended audience. Making him the president of this company sure sounds like a pretty smart idea to me, doesn't it? Now, other than the two Galantes, the Ice Wars website also lists a director of operations, a media lead, a producer, and a head legal counsel as part of the Ice Wars team. So it really does seem like this event is the real deal, at least on the surface anyway. Now, if you want my opinion on all this, I actually think that Ice Wars is a really good idea. Sure, the fighting itself is maybe closer to boxing than it is to hockey fighting, and it's a pretty niche concept for an already niche sport in hockey, but if the Ice Wars team can actually pull this off, the event has the potential to succeed, and then some. After all, many hockey fans miss the good old days when fights happened pretty much every single game, and line brawls were a regular occurrence. So give them an event like this, and you've got yourselves a sizable, dedicated fan base that will support you for many years to come. We all know how dedicated hockey fans are, especially the hardcore ones. Give them a show where they get to watch former hockey players beat each other up, and I think you're going to be getting a good stream of revenue very consistently, you know? Now, whilst I love the concept and I think it could go very far, I don't think that I would be the type of person to become a hardcore fan of Ice Wars and follow every single event religiously. Would I pay $20 for the stream and watch it live? Probably not. But would I check out the highlights after the event and keep up to date with its progress on social media? Absolutely. I mean, I'm already following them on Twitter. I want to see how this whole thing pans out, you know? Now, on the flip side, I can certainly understand if people are turned off by this whole concept because they think it's glorifying fighting, or they don't want to support this because they are concerned about the health and safety of the fighters themselves. After all, most of the competitors have already been in hundreds of fights during their respective hockey careers, and have probably sustained some notable damage to their bodies during this span. The effect that these glorified fights could have on their long-term health is definitely worth taking into consideration. That said, if every fighter is aware of the risks involved, and they accept the possible outcomes that could occur as a result of them fighting in the event, then I don't see why they shouldn't be allowed to compete and the tournament be allowed to go ahead. At least in my opinion anyway. Don't get me wrong, I would never want to compete in an event like this personally, but if you can prolong your hockey career even for a brief moment, continue doing what you're known for best, and maybe even earn a little extra money while you're at it too, I don't think there's much harm in it, do you? I mean, most of the competitors have already fought hundreds of times, they are all well past their prime at this point, and they are unlikely to do any more long-term damage. What's the harm in them fighting a few more times, right? Now that we know what Ice Wars is and who runs it, how did their debut event go down? Was Ice Wars a massive success, or was it a complete flop? Well, hosted at Edmonton's River Cree Resort and Casino on Saturday, May 21st, the very first Ice Wars International officially got underway. Featuring 8 different fighters in a 3-round tournament, each combatant was eager to throw some punches and spill some blood in the hopes of being the last man standing and earning the title King of the Ring. And who were the 8 fighters who took part in the tournament, I hear you ask? Well, firstly, there was Daniel Diamond Hands Amsbury. The 6-foot-tall, 225-pound former pro hockey and lacrosse player is the PIJHL's all-time leader in penalty minutes, was kicked out of the WLA in 2018, and had 40 fights in just 43 games during the 11-12 SPHL season. And that's not even mentioning him being the CHL's toughest player during the 12-13 season too. That's quite some resume, eh, folks? Next up, we have Curtis Cowboy Swanson. The 6'2", 260-pound pipe-fitting and oil maintenance worker from British Columbia racked up over 1,321 career penalty minutes, had over 50 career multi-fight games, 60 fighting majors during the 05-06 season, and racked up 230 fighting majors in just 172 games. I imagine that most of those came during his half a decade in the LNAH. That league is known for being as tough as they come, right? Moving on, we have Justin Bonesaw Sawyer, the 6'6", 284-pound heavyweight from Toronto, racked up 211 fights during his 10-year pro hockey career, and he has never been knocked down in a single fight during that span. I imagine that him being 6'6" and built like a freight train had a lot to do with that achievement though, you know? Next up, we have Corey Alley Train Allen, the 6'1", 278-pound truck driver from Ontario, registered over 200 fights and 1,500 career penalty minutes during his 17 seasons of senior AA hockey, and added 5 post-game majors to his resume too. If his bloodied knuckles or his lack of teeth in that picture don't show you that he can handle himself in a scrap, I don't know what will, folks. Next, we have the Beast Jean-Francois Lafrance, the 5'10", 245-pound construction worker from Quebec, took part in over 150 fights during his career and averaged 8 penalty minutes a game during that span. Hey, he may be the smallest man at the competition so far, but that doesn't mean he can't throw them down like the rest of them, you know? Moving on, we have Travis Buckethead Levitsky, the 6'3", 318-pound consultant from Saskatchewan, played 3 years of junior hockey, was a defensive tackle in the AFL, and recorded over 40 knockouts in over 100 career fights. Given that he has knocked out so many people, and given that he is much heavier than the rest of his contemporaries, I know I wouldn't want to take a punch from him, would you? Next, we have Derek the Lion Parker, the 6'2", 260-pound train conductor from Saskatchewan, has recorded over 400 professional fights and racked up 2,176 penalty minutes in just 287 games. That's over 8 penalty minutes every single game, folks. Talk about a tough customer. And finally, we have Chase Tip Tippin, the 6'3", 285-pound carpenter from Ontario, had over 100 fights in his hockey career, racked up 655 penalty minutes in just 236 games, and even recorded 67 penalty minutes in a single shift. Now that's how you make an impact, right guys? With the 8 fighters now introduced, the initial bracket saw Diamond Hands face the Lion, Tip against Corey Allen, Bonesaw versus Buckethead, and Cowboy against the Beast for the first round of the tournament. God, with nicknames like those, I feel like I'm hosting an episode of Robot Wars or something. Now, it's worth mentioning that there were a number of other combatants who also fought at this event in unique singles or grudge matches too, including a pair of brothers who fought each other in the same contest. But for the sake of time, let's focus on the main event, shall we? So how did the 8-man tournament play out? Well, the first round saw Diamond Hands and Tip advance from Group A thanks to their wins over the Lion and Corey Allen respectively, while Bonesaw and Cowboy bested Buckethead and the Beast to advance from Group B. From there, Diamond Hands would defeat Tip in round 2 to win Group A and book his place in the final round, while Bonesaw bested the Cowboy to win Group B and also advance to the finals. With only 2 fighters remaining, Diamond Hands and Bonesaw dropped the gloves one last time and went head-to-head in the final round of the tournament. Though Bonesaw towered over his opponent and held a sizable weight advantage too, David would somehow defeat Goliath, as Daniel Diamond Hands Amsbury defeated Justin Bonesaw Sawyer, won the final match of the tournament, and became the first fighter to ever be crowned Ice Wars King of the Ring. Considering the amount of punches he had thrown and taken in order to come out on top, Diamond Hands' victory was no easy feat, you know. So how was this event received by those who watched it? Did their audience enjoy the show, or was it an absolute disaster? Well, based on what I've seen on social media in the week since the event took place, Ice Wars was a resounding success. Whether it was the numerous fans who attended the event in person, the large number of people who watched the pay-per-view stream online, or the sizable contingent who discovered it on social media after the fact thanks to reposts by Spittin' Chicklets and John Boy Media, amongst many other outlets, the response to Ice Wars has been nothing but positive, at least from what I've seen anyway. In fact, other than a couple of fans who suggested that the fighters wear roller skates instead of ice skates due to the risk of cuts, I was really hard-pressed to find anything even remotely resembling a negative opinion of the event, especially from their intended audience of both hockey and boxing fans. Well, now that their first event has come to an end and their debut outing is officially in the history books, what's next for Ice Wars? Well, given that their website claims to have 4 Ice Wars events planned, we should expect to see 3 more competitions at some point in the future. And considering how successful their opening event has appeared to be, and considering the pretty much unanimous positive reception that it has received, I would be extremely surprised if these events didn't take place in the near future. However, when these events are happening and where they are taking place are yet to be announced, so I imagine that these details will be revealed as and when they have been finalised by the respective groups. Not only that, I expect that Ice Wars will look to utilise their international subtitle and take their event elsewhere in the hockey world too. Given the positive reception to their debut event and the potential income that was made during the tournament, both from live ticket sales and pay-per-view streams, I doubt they'll have any trouble finding another venue to host it, do you? So, will Ice Wars stick around in Canada? Will it try its luck south of the border in America? Or will it take its talents to Europe instead? Regardless of where it ends up next, I wouldn't be surprised if their sophomore outing was even better than their first one. After all, it's boxing on skates. What more could you want, right guys? And that was a look at Ice Wars International. What do you guys think about this pretty unique event? Do you think that it's just another fad that will be over as soon as it began? Or do you think that it has potential to become a regular event in the hockey calendar, and you're eager to check out their next tournament? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye! A big thank you to Clayton Hallam, Drew Fawcett, Houston NG, Raquel and Worthless Pieces for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.